Good evening. I'm very to have the lovely Leigh back with me again. Hello, Leigh. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Donna. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to come along and chat tonight. It's always lovely chatting to you. Only sorry that this is online, so we can't have a big Donna hug, but soon, I hope. Yeah, I'm Leigh Russell, and I write the Geraldine Steele crime series, which has sold nearly 2 million books now, and I can hardly believe it myself, but I'm currently writing the 23rd book in the series, and the book number 22 was published actually just a few days ago on, I think, the 15th of August. Geraldine Steele books are police procedural crime novels, basically start with a body, off we go, murder investigations. And so far, so good. They've been very popular. So my publisher keeps wanting more. And as long as people keep reading them, I guess I will keep writing them. My publisher will want to keep publishing them. I find the challenge now, 23 books in, is to introduce something a little bit different in each book. And I was particularly pleased with the early reviews of Deadly Will, which came out a few days ago, because the first two reviews both actually used the same word fresh in them. They both said that the story was fresh and different. And so I thought, yes, okay, that's great. Because of course, readers want to read about my detective, who they've got to know, but they also want something a little bit different in each book. And I'm very careful with each of my books that each book is part of a series, but also works as a standalone, because I have quite a number of readers now who are following the series and want to read the next book in the series, know what's happened before. But there are also a lot of people who haven't read any of my books, and they might pick up any book in the series at any place in the series, and they want to enjoy the book just as much as someone who's been reading right from the beginning. So all I can say really is, so far so good. I have had nearly 40 novels published, but the Geraldine Steele series is my main series. And I now have a cozy crime series featuring a little dog called Poppy, which is inspired by and based on a real little dog called Poppy. I think, is that enough? I could keep talking all night.
Something that I'm quite intrigued by with someone that's written so many books is, do you remember the excitement you had when your very first book was published? And is that level of excitement still the same with the book that came out on the 15th?
The excitement changes. The very first book I had published was wildly exciting because I'm a published author, and we had a launch and we told everybody we knew, and everyone turned out, and we had quite a big launch for that. But by the time we got to about the 6th or 7th book in the series, people were not quite so excited about being invited to the launch. Yeah, done that before. Yes, I'll read the book, but I might not actually come out to the bookshop. We had a launch party for a book that I wrote that's set in Seychelles, which was quite exciting because the Minister for Culture and Tourism from Seychelles flew over to London for that launch party. That was pretty good. And also when the 10th book in the Geraldine Steele series came out, I think that was around the time that we hit the 1 million sales. And so my publisher threw, it was a party really, it wasn't so much a launch, it was a party, and it was great fun. And we had my detective Geraldine Steele there with her sergeant Ian Peterson. It was actually my daughter in a short black wig and her partner, but there we go. They had police badges, and they were going up to people saying, "Excuse me, what are you doing here? And excuse me, have you seen anything suspicious?" But they actually accosted my publisher. They did accost my publisher, but they also accosted my editor, who's been with the Geraldine Steele books right from the beginning and knows the characters really well and knew the characters far better than my daughter and her partner did. And so she ended up quizzing them about themselves, and they were, oh, so it was hilarious. So that was good fun. But the excitement is different because the excitement for me now is more nerves about how is the book going to be received, and more a question of relief, really, when the books are well received. In one of the novels, I think I'd got to about book number 18 or 19 or 20, and I was trying to come up with something really different. And I came up with an idea that I thought was actually a bit too far-fetched. I thought my publisher is never going to go for this, but they did. And the book came out, and the readers were saying things like, this is such a different take on the genre. I never saw this coming. This is so original. And I thought, okay, phew, I got away with that one. So the challenges are different and the excitement is different. But I think it's more a question of satisfaction at this stage, really, that I have done this, I've achieved this. And so, yeah, writing book 23 in the series, the writing is as exciting as ever. And I've always said, and I stand by this, that the real excitement, I mean, it is fantastic being a published author. And it's wonderful to get good reviews and have people contacting you saying how much they enjoy your books. But the real thrill for me, as I'm sure for most writers, the real thrill is in the writing. And when you write something that actually is what you intended to say and you just feel it works, that is still such a thrill. I don't think that thrill will ever go away. And if it does, if I fall out of love with writing, really, then I'll just stop. But at the moment, I still have a passion for writing. I absolutely love it.
Do you have a detailed sort of spreadsheet or anything of all your characters and all your storylines? Because I had to go back to my book and try and find out what the name of the surname of a character was, and that's after just one book. So I don't know how to possibly keep up with all of those characters and all of those storylines over 20 odd books.
Yes, I mean, when I started, I thought, oh, it's fine, I've got it all in my head. But yes, after a couple of books, I was scrabbling around trying to remember what I'd actually written. Fortunately, I've had the same editor for Geraldine Steele right the way through, and she has a phenomenal memory. She remembers everything. And so if I were to have a character who, let's say in one book, doesn't like coffee, and then a couple of books further on is drinking coffee all day long, she would probably remember that. But I know my characters pretty well. I think you go through a phase of not being able to remember stuff, but by the time I've got to this stage, I kind of know my characters, really. They've been with me, I've been with them for quite a long time, and so I know them pretty well. And but yes, I mean, that can be an issue, I know. And no, I don't keep records. I should do, I know, but I just start writing and hope for the best, really. And so far, so good, it seems to have worked. But I do sometimes have to refer back to earlier books, yes, and see what actually did I do with that character.
A fun question that I ask someone, especially with someone that's written so many books, is there a method of death or murder that you find that you go to more than others? Do you have like a favorite kill method in your book?
Oh, well, you see, to answer that question, I would actually have to remember all my books. I'm not sure I can remember. I try to make it different in each book. I mean, I do feel that particularly with my Geraldine Steele series, what differentiates each book from another in the series is the character and the motivation of my killer. And so they tend to use different methods. And I think I use a variety of methods. I'm not actually sure. I can't remember that well. I don't know if you find this, but when I'm writing a book, it is very much in my head and I can remember almost everything about it. But once I've finished it, once it's gone off to the editor, once it's been published, it kind of goes out of my head and I'm on to the next one. And I think that's probably it's probably necessary and probably quite fortunate in my case that I have such a bad memory, because otherwise I think I might get confused.
Yeah,
that's my anyway.
Have you ever been writing and thinking, where on earth does that come from? Like, what part of my brain has thought, oh, that'd be a good thing, and thinking, how have I thought that done?
No, I try not to think about that too much, because I'm actually, I think I'm a very normal kind of person. And I'm certainly not a violent person. I don't know where all this sort of darkness comes from. And as I say, I mean, Crime Time said that my books take the reader into the darkest recesses of the human psyche. I don't know how I get there. I try not to think about that, but I don't know where it comes from. But at the end of the day, I just make it all up, really. I just make it up. It's not me. I'm not, I don't go around killing people to research how it would feel.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'd love to know, because like, you know me as well, I'm quite gentle and calm and stuff. And yet when I write, I'm like, wow, okay.
No, where does it come from? Where does it come from? I mean, I think to some extent, I mean, I'm quite a fearful person, really. And I think to some extent when we're writing crime, we're playing out our fears, aren't we? You know, put a character in a deserted car park on their own at night. That for me would be absolutely terrifying. I mean, my husband laughs at me for being so scared of so many things, but I am. And I think in writing, we can act out our fears, can't we? A bit like children, we're playing, aren't we? They say, don't they, writers never grow up. So I think to some extent, perhaps we're just playing out our fears, playing out things that we know would never happen to us, or hopefully would never happen. But I really don't know where it comes from. I think as human beings, we are so complex and there are so many facets to our character. And who knows what is, you know, hidden away there. I'd rather not know, to be honest. I mean, I would never, ever go for any kind of therapy where they delve into what's going on in my subconscious. I think it's hidden from my conscious mind for a reason. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. It's probably, you know, some nasty things in there lurking around. I don't know.
I 100% agree with that. Totally. It can stay hidden, buried. That's fine. Yeah, we don't need to be messing around.
No, there's a reason why it's buried away. Yeah.
So what was the spark for the latest book? What gave you the, oh, that could be an idea?
Yeah, okay. So I think, okay, I need to deliver a manuscript in 6 months' time. What am I going to write about? And then from the pressure of knowing that I have to come up with something, I come up with an idea. And so the book that has just come out, well, it's called Deadly Will. So there's a clue there, isn't there? And we basically have a wealthy businessman who is murdered. And there are 3 people who might inherit his estate. There's his 2 children, his son and his daughter. There's also his rather young, glamorous new girlfriend. And so there's all sorts of potential for fallings out and things going on there. And there are 3 ready-made suspects, really. So it is going to be one of them, or is it? Maybe it'll be somebody else entirely. And so that's where the whole thing kicks off. And then trying to think of something that is going to surprise readers. So it probably won't be one of those 3 who are the obvious suspects, but then maybe there's a double bluff and it is one of those 3. So those are the lines that it really kind of goes along. Starts with the murder and a little sort of surprise right at the beginning, because the body is discovered in the river. And so the initial thinking is that he drowned, but actually, no, he was shot before the body entered the water. So this was very clearly murder. And we go on from there. But where the idea came from, I don't know, really. Just an idea, really. Why would anybody kill another human being? There are so many reasons, aren't there? So in this particular novel, I guess I'm exploring the motive of greed. Somebody wants to inherit all his money. So that is one possible motive, isn't it? There are all sorts of motives. And in each of my books, the killer has a different motive for killing his victims. And some of them, as I say, are a little bit unusual. And some of them, as in Deadly Will, yeah, fairly, I say normal. It's not normal to kill somebody for their money, but
I think there's only sort of, isn't it, power, revenge, love, and money are the kind of four reasons.
Yeah, but there are other reasons, aren't there? There could be resentment, there could be jealousy, there could be somebody who feels that they've been slighted, could be fear, couldn't it? You could have someone who has been bullied and abused all their life and just flips. And then there are psychopaths who will kill another person just like I might kill a wasp. So there are all sorts of reasons and motivations. I try to avoid having killers who are just crazy, because I think that's a bit of a cheat. There has to be a motive, there has to be a reason. You can't just, I mean, people do, but I think it's a bit of a cheat if you end your book by just, oh yeah, they killed somebody because they're insane. Because that's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it? I think there has to be a reason, there has to be a motive.
Well, it seems like it would make it a less interesting book as well. I mean, perhaps not, but I think most readers like to know why, don't they? That's why they're reading, is because
yes.
they don't and won't kill. Then we want to know why people do. So
yes.
Like,
And also, how can you really kind of work out why they did it if they're just crazy, and that's the explanation. Yeah. But of course, they are all a bit crazy. I mean, it seems to me that to kill another human being is always an act of insanity. Some people are just insane. Some people are driven to it. I mean, if somebody was threatening my life and I had the means at my disposal to kill them, if it was me or them, and I'm in terror of my life, who knows what I might do? I think I probably would say, okay, I don't want it to be me, it's going to be you. So people can just be terrified, can't they? People can be, I mean, if you were a woman who had been coercively controlled and abused by a partner for years, and then you realize the partner is beginning to abuse your child, you might be driven to, who knows, people can be driven to kill through grief, through anger, through all sorts of motives. So, but I think there has to be a motive, and that's what always starts me off in each of my books. I need a motive for my killer, and then everything else falls into place around that.
Yeah. Where do you set your books? I don't think we've ever discussed before where you set them. Oh, we have, because you moved them, didn't you, for your...
Yeah, Geraldine starts in Kent. She then relocates to London, works in a Met for a while. And then she has to leave the Met and she's demoted. And I'm not going to tell you why, but you have to read the series if you want to find out. So she then has to leave the Met. She moves to York. While she was in Kent, she was working with a sergeant, Ian Peterson. When she moves to London, a lot of readers were quite put out because they liked her sergeant. And I mean, I had a manager of a W.H. Smith who said to me, oh, I'm in love with Ian Peterson. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? It's just something I made up, because she needed a sergeant. But anyway, so when she moves to London, she leaves her sergeant behind. So I wrote a trilogy for him, just because readers wanted more about him. And at the end of his trilogy, he moves to York. So when Geraldine has to leave London, she goes to York and they're reunited, which actually works out beautifully. I hadn't planned it, but I couldn't have planned it better. So yeah, she moves around a little bit, but she's settled in York now and she's going to stay there. She's very settled there. But I have written other books set in different places. I mentioned I wrote a book set in Seychelles. I have a book set in Paris, one set in Rome. I've written one historical novel, which is set in Venice during the Renaissance. Fascinating period, just so interesting. And that book took me 3 years to write because I did so much research. And I've written one dystopian novel, which I wrote actually during lockdown. And that's set, well, in some future place.
The one in Venice, was it Venice? It's one of my favourite books of yours. I love that still.
Yeah, Abigail of Venice, set in the 16th century. Yeah. It's that took me a long time to write, and it was very interesting actually, because I had to write from the point of view of a woman living 500 years ago. How do we know how people thought and felt then? God is a very real presence in her life constantly. which it is not for me. She's superstitious, which I'm not. And she just accepts that this is a patriarchal society and men are in control. She doesn't even question that. But at the same time, she's a person and she loves and fears and hopes and dreams just like I do. So in some ways it was difficult, in some ways it wasn't. I recently came across, if people have heard me talking in a library or anywhere like that, you'll have heard this story, but I recently came across a poem and it's about Odin, the Norse god Odin, and he has two ravens who fly off around the world gathering information and bring it back to him. And one is called Hugin and the other one is called Munin. And Hugin means thought and Munin means memory. And the poet says, I fear for the ravens I fear for my ravens that they come not back. He says, I fear for Hugin that he come not back, that's thought. I fear more for Munin that he come not back, that's memory. And this was somebody who was beginning, their memory was beginning to go a little bit as they grew older. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's exactly how I feel sometimes. But this poem was written in the 10th century. Oh. Just amazing, isn't it? Somebody writing in the 10th century was expressing what I sometimes think myself. And I think this is the one of the things that is so wonderful about literature, that we do feel this sense of common humanity with other people. We read what other people write and we think, yes, I know what you mean. Yes, that's how I feel.
I think
I don't know. Oh yeah, yeah.
I think we're less scared to broach these things now. That I don't know if you know, but Trevor Wood, his latest book features a character that's just been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's or dementia. And, I'd imagine that's quite unique. But, I imagine years ago, it's one of those things that you didn't really talk about, but now it's in a crime book.
Yeah, it's quite common now, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
So it's quite nice that, we can talk about all of these things, and by reading a crime book, you're learning, and then perhaps it might give you, a conversation with someone. A lot of people have said on the back of his books about homeless people that they treat them differently, which is also really nice. But
yes, I look at the issue of homelessness in each of my novels. I focus on a different social issue, and one of my novels deals with the issue of homelessness, or rough sleepers, as we call them now, not homeless people. And I did a lot of research, visiting shelters and talking to people there. But it's a growing problem, I think, isn't it? It's a growing problem. And there are all sorts of issues that crime fiction looks at. One of my novels, I look at the issue of gun crime, because I felt I couldn't really have a detective working in North London and never mention guns. And of course, most people in possession of firearms, they're not evil master criminals. They're dysfunctional people, they're kids, they're drug addicts. So I look at that in one of my novels. My very first novel, Cut Short, the killer is really a character who shouldn't be out on the streets unsupervised, but he is. That's also a problem, isn't it? Mental health issues. And I think this is one of the things that makes crime fiction so interesting and so popular, that it not only places individual characters in extreme circumstances where we think, how would I behave in that situation? If I was in fear of my life, if I was being abused, whatever. But it also invites us to look at how we behave as a society. And of course, fiction, it has no answers. I mean, I've got no answer to the issue of gun crime, the issue of people who are homeless. But I think it's important to look at these issues, to raise them. And as you say, it might start a conversation. But there are tricky issues to consider, aren't they?
You find it hard to get the balance right, not go too political or give your own opinion too much, sort of thing, or
no, I'm very careful not to make any political comments, not to have a political agenda at all in my novels. My characters might do a little bit. They might I mean, for example, they might say, you know, social services should be doing something about this, but they're also overworked. They don't have the resources. We need more funding, you know, that kind of thing. But that's the extent of it. No, I'm very careful not to be at all kind of controversial or political in my books, because I don't think that's what I should be doing. That's not my role as an author. I think I'm a storyteller. I'm telling stories. I'm not banging the drum for any political agenda. I think, you know, if I was working in politics, I would be doing that. I'm not. I'm just writing fiction. And so, no, I'm quite careful by and large. I mean, occasionally I'll make a slip, but by and large, I'm very careful not to make any political sort of comments online. And I think there are issues that are beyond politics, aren't there?
Yes, absolutely.
Like people being homeless, like gun crime, like drugs, you know, whatever your politics are, we all feel, I think, the same about these issues, don't we? These social issues.
Yeah, absolutely. The truth being stranger than fiction could never be more true at the minute, I don't think.
Well, I think truth is stranger than fiction, and I think truth can be more painful, a lot more painful than fiction, because when we're reading fiction, well, certainly I don't want to feel too disturbed. I mean, some books are quite disturbing, aren't they? And sometimes it's important. I mean, I don't think we should gloss over things. I never gloss over violence and the effects of violence in my books. I don't think we should. Although that, you know, a lot of entertainment does, like James Bond. You know, so many people get shot, but it doesn't matter. They're just extra. And it's really, it's almost glamorized, isn't it? The violence. I don't think we should glamorize it or gloss over it. But at the same time, I don't want to kind of milk the violence. My books are not really, really violent, but obviously they are violent because people get killed. It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, I mean, it annoys me in some ways because, and when people moan about certain things, it's like, you have looked outside and you have watched the news, like, you know, this stuff happens for real, right? Like, you can't moan about people swearing, or because, you know, fiction, generally we have to hold it back because the publishers or the editors tell us to anyway. But it's like you're moaning about something, yet you're ignoring the fact that really, you know, what we're writing is nothing compared to the outside.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, for me, fiction is an escape from reality, really. So I have characters who swear, obviously, but I never use swear words in my own prose, because to me, I think that's kind of lazy writing. There must be a better word, mustn't there?
Yeah.
But some writers do use a lot of swear words in their actual prose, and I choose not to do that, really. But, you know, we're all different and it works with some people, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I was quite glad. I noticed when I was writing that I didn't really swear that much, and it was in dialogue. It wasn't really, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. It wasn't a deliberate.
Some characters wouldn't seem plausible, wouldn't seem convincing if you didn't put in a few swear words. I remember, I think it must have been my first book, and I didn't want to use the F word. And then somebody said to me, well, you know, why not? I said, my mum might read this. And he said, actually, my mum was very broad-minded. She wouldn't have minded at all. But he said, yeah, but that character wouldn't really seem convincing if they never use the F word. So, yeah, I find I use it less with my characters now, really. But sometimes they do swear. Yeah.
Well, I think if you're being, you know, kidnapped or shot or stabbed or whatever, then, you know, a swear word's going to probably slip out because.
Yeah. And I've got to say, I use swear words myself when I'm talking. Not often. It tends to go in phases. Sometimes I get into habit and I use them quite a lot, and other times I don't. I think we've got out of the habit a bit since my granddaughter came along, because we have to be a bit careful. And children pick things up, don't they? Just like that. And yeah, one time she started saying, oh chit. We thought, okay, better not say that.
I found I swear less since I don't work at Greggs anymore. Don't know if there's
I understand that.
Yeah, there's a correlation there at all.
Yeah.
Definitely
I mean,
does.
it can be a way of just kind of venting your feelings in a way, can't it? Just expressing your anger.
Oh yes, it
Yeah.
was necessary.
But,
Yes, so that I didn't say it to the customers. I had to.
that or steam coming out of your ears, which is it going to be?
Or both sometimes. Yeah,
Or both, yeah.
yeah, it definitely does. Now I'm very chilled now, and I hardly swear occasionally because I'm still human. But
And you can always come back to your little dog.
yes, he's now come and sat back on my arm.
Oh.
Yeah, silly dog. So what's happening? Are you doing any events for the rest of the year?
I need to check my diary, don't I? Am I doing any events for us? I'm going to Noir at the Bar in St Albans.
Oh yes.
And, I'm cutting back a lot on going to literary festivals. It just became so time consuming, and I've been to so many over the years. So I've sort of cut back on that. I'm spending more time writing and also editing other people's work, which I love doing. And we're actually having holidays that are just holidays instead of holidays that are based around my book events. We're going to Cornwall next year, which will be, I'm going to 2 libraries and a book club. So I've been invited along there. They're putting me up, which is very nice. But no, I'm not doing so many events anymore, really. So how about you? Are you what's happening with Brighton?
I need to get my Brighton gear and get that organised actually.
I'd probably come along to Brighton just because it's you. But
yeah, I do plan to do it. It's in my head to do it. Just stuff keeps coming up and then I keep getting so yes, but I definitely am going to do it next year. In March, April time, depending on when Easter falls, I can't remember now. And when the other festivals are.
So, I mean, there's so many festivals now, aren't there? I think it's difficult, really. People get a bit festivaled out, don't they?
And the cost as well. I mean, they're so expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, I'm definitely doing one. I just need to organise it. Really, it's fine. I'll get there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm so easily
I did Alibis in the library in Wales not that long ago, and that was a lovely event. I don't know if you've ever been to that. They put us up in the library. I think it's the only library in Britain that has accommodation, and it's just a lovely, lovely place. I tend to go if they put me up these days, because then you kind of think, well, I can't really refuse, can I? But no, I've got a bit lazy in terms of going to festivals, and basically, if I'm invited somewhere and I really fancy going, I will go, or if I know the organizer. But other than that, I'm a bit, I've done so many. Does that make me sound terrible? Very lazy?
Not at all. I mean, I've only been going to festivals for 3 or 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
And
I've been doing festivals now since about 2009, I guess. How long is that? Got to work it out.
15 years?
No. To,
yeah, 15.
About 15 years, is it? Yeah, about 15 years. Yeah. In 15 years is kind of probably enough, really. I'm taking a bit of a break from it all.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, there's panels I won't go to because I've heard the questions, I've heard the answers. There's no point, it's the same people, same questions, same answers. So,
exactly.
And that's 4 years. Yeah. So yeah.
If I go to panels, I hear what people are saying, and I tend to think, yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, that's what I say. And I think, yeah, that's what I was. Or if I'm on a panel, I try and say different things, but it's still me, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, I've been to so many festivals over the years, not just in the UK, bilingual festivals in France, Bouchcon in New Orleans. I've been all over the place, really, and I feel like I've kind of done that, really.
Yeah, I'm at the other side though. I want to do them, but as an author, so
yeah. Oh no, that's fun. Yeah, But I mean, I think one of the nicest things really is just seeing all the people, over the years, you get to know so many people, and that's nice. But I mean, there are some authors who seem to just go to everything, and I just think, no, I haven't really got the time for that really, or the energy anymore. I'm not as young as I was. But you should go to everything. You should go to everything and enjoy it. Yeah, and get on those panels.
Yeah, just waiting to be asked. Hopefully, hopefully next year. But yeah, I ran out of holiday at work this year as well, which sucks. Because I started a new job, then my holiday year is different. So I had to.
Where are you working now?
It's called Carlisle Support Services.
It's a what?
Carlisle Support Services.
Oh, okay.
So it's like cleaning and security staff we loan out or hire out to train stations and Tesco's and place events like Wembley, Cheltenham, Ascot.
So you're not meeting members of the public all the time.
No, they're just in my ear on the phone instead.
Yeah. Much more civilized. Much civilized.
Oh yes, and much less annoying when they're in your face as well. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's very different, but it's good fun generally.
Well, it's good to be challenged to do interesting things, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Show you. Just came, I think, yesterday. This is the latest copy. This is out in September, so I got some early poppies. Can you see Poppy on the cover?
Yes, so cute.
There she is. This is the Christmas one, which is coming out in September. Not quite sure why, but that's what the publishers felt would work best for sales. So okay, that's whatever my publisher wants is fine with me.
As a blogger, I've been inundated with Christmas books. I'm like, no, I refuse to even talk about it yet. This was in July. I'm like, no, I'm not even thinking it. You could bugger off with your Christmas book.
Yes, I mean, I think some of the bookshops, they need a 6-month lead-in, or some of the national papers, they want a 6-month lead-in, which means a Christmas book has to be written and printed 6 months before it's even published, which is crazy, isn't it? But everybody's trying to get earlier and earlier to get it in first. So yeah, but so I'm just I've written the next Poppy book, which will be coming out early next year. That's gone off. I think I've just done I've done the edits for that. That's gone off. It's gone off to be copy edited and proofread. And the 22nd Geraldine Steele has gone off to be edited, I think, and I'm writing the 23rd one, which I need to write for the end of October. I kind of get confused. I forget.
I'm not surprised.
So each day I just get on with what I have to do that day and hope everything falls into place. But fortunately, I've got a brilliant team around me, so they keep abreast of things. Like with the newsletter, I now have to write 2 newsletters a month. One I have to deliver at the beginning of the month, and one I have to deliver the middle of the month, because one is for Poppy and the other is for Geraldine Steele. But sometimes they email me to remind me. They say, oh, can you send us the newsletter, please? Because I've forgotten. There's just so much going on, really. And plus I'm editing other people's work. But it's still good fun. And I'm still enjoying writing Geraldine Steele and writing the Poppy books. So, maybe one day I'll write something different. But at the moment, having the 2 series going, that sort of keeps me busy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and you must be busy because you've got the day job as well, haven't you? So
yeah, and still blogging, and yeah, I've finished the first draft of book 2. So I need to start editing that at some point.
It's exciting.
Yes, I really enjoyed writing it as well, so I'm quite looking forward to getting back to it. So I know I'm not ready to go back to it yet because it needs more time.
So did you have a 2-book deal or a 3-book deal, or how did it?
For 1 book, so.
Okay, so the 2nd book, you're going to send it to your publisher and see what they think.
Yeah, they've got first refusal, so and then let's see.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Who are you with?
Rampart Books.
Say again?
Rampart books.
Okay, yeah.
Because they're brand new.
Fingers crossed. Are you pleased with them, with what they've done with the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is exciting, isn't it? I mean, you're kind of at the beginning of the process, really, aren't you? When it's still exciting to hold your book in your hand. And yeah, I remember first holding my first book. But my very first book, it was they brought it out in a very small. I've still got some somewhere. I've got a couple. They brought it out in a very small format, just a black and white cover on fairly cheap paper, because obviously, nobody had heard of me. They wanted to see how it would do, and they had to reprint it after 6 weeks, I think, or might have been less than that. And so by the second book, it was slightly larger and had color on the cover. And then they reissued the first book with a color cover, and then it became a shiny cover. And it's sort of developed, but the very first book was really quite small and modest looking. But of course, it's all a story, isn't it? And then ebooks have come along, haven't they? And that has really changed everything. And my books sell far more as ebooks than they do as print books. Print books are a harder sell, I think, for the publisher.
Yeah.
Obviously expensive to produce. So I think they quite like ebooks. I think there's sort of a bit of kudos in having print books, but the real sales for me certainly come with ebooks. And I actually read on a Kindle. I don't know about you. I love real books, but the Kindle is just so convenient, isn't it? And you just carry your library with you wherever you go, and you can just think, well, what do I fancy reading today? So
definitely.
it has changed things. But I mean, my concern in a way is that moving forward, the youngsters, yes, they can read books on their tablets, but they can also play games, they can watch films. What are they going to do? Are they going to be reading books, or are they going to be playing video games?
Yeah.
I think things are in a state of flux, aren't they? And I think we need stories, but I think we're getting our stories in. We have a choice of ways to access stories now, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we can watch films, and games, I think, tell stories, don't they? Sort of interactive stories.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, if you were bored, I mean, we played outside all the time, but if it was raining, you were bored. There was no television during the day, so there was really nothing to do except read a book. So that's what we did. But now, so many sources of entertainment for children and adults as well, that I think things are changing, aren't they? And of course, more and more people are writing. I have so many people contacting me because they want to produce a book that might be picked up by an agent or a publisher. And it's quite, it surprises me how many people there are who are looking for publishers, looking for publication. But some of them make it, but the jungle out there, really.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
One of my writers that I edited has recently signed a 2-book deal with a major publisher, which I'm very excited about. And a couple of others have got agents.
Oh, wow.
After I worked on their books with them. But not all of them secure agents and publishers. It's very competitive out there, as you know.
Yes.
So I consider myself very fortunate that I've got a really wonderful publisher, and I feel a bit kind of guilty in a way that I sometimes think, oh gosh, I've got to write another book for them. And I think, well, there's so many people that would give their right arm to be in my position. I am very, very fortunate, but you've got to be lucky. I always say to people, I mean, the 3 things that when I'm asked for advice, I mean, I can spend 2 weeks full time advising people and still only touch the tip of the iceberg of what I've learned through my own experience. But I can boil it down to 3 things. One is to work hard, because it is full time hard work. The next one is to be brave, because you get your book out there and people can say what they want about it, and they do. But the third one is to be lucky.
Yeah.
And I think I've been very lucky to I found a publisher very quickly and have stayed with them. They've stuck with me, and they've now published about 30 of my books, I think 27 of my books with that publisher. I think quite a lot. Anyway, I lose count. I don't even know quite how many books I've had published. I can add it all up if I go through it in my head. But yeah, it's been quite a fun ride, and not over yet, because I'm still contracted to write another 3 books, I think, and then who knows after that.
And I think that's a lovely note to end on.
Yes, we sort of wandered a bit off topic, didn't we? But I do ramble on a bit, but I don't really feel like I'm being interviewed with you. I just feel like I'm chatting to a friend.
Yeah, me too.
So I hope I haven't said anything that I shouldn't have said.
No, you're fine, don't worry.